Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this session. My name is Muhammad Abu Laban. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of DR Facilities Management. I'll be your host for this session, and I'm going to talk about effective mobilization in the FM industry, the difference between success and failure. We are going to talk about 5 points. The first one, what is the definition of mobilization? And the second point, we are going to talk about the elements of transition. Then we are going to talk about the 5 M's which you need to remember, and then a case study, and then we will end up with lessons learned. First, what is the definition of mobilization? You can find a lot of definitions online and in books, but what I want you to take is simple. Just plan and organize activities, communicate and collaborate with different stakeholders, upstream with your client and downstream with your service providers and partners, and then manage the expectations of your customer, and at the end deliver the services by the end of the mobilization period. The second thing is now to remember the key elements of transition. The first one is culture and collaboration. So what you need to do is to understand the culture of the client. You need to understand the client needs and his requirements. The second pillar is engagement of client and incumbent. When you are taking over, you will be taking over from an existing contractor or service provider, if it's an existing project, or if it is a construction project which is at the end phase and now it's being handed over to a facilities management company, you need to have a good relationship with the contractor from this side as well. So it's very important to have early engagement with different stakeholders and have a deep understanding of the clients and existing problems and obstacles. And therefore, you need to have a change management process being from the existing service provider or from the existing contractor that finished the construction. The next point is to talk about the transition team. So you need to identify your team. This team, as much as you can put from your existing resources, that would be good. If you can reach 50%, that would be great. But normally we could put 20 to 25% of the existing staff that have worked with you for a certain period, and then the other part, which is up to 75% from new staff members that have joined your company. Now you need to set clear timelines for different activities, and you need to carry out a due diligence of the facility. And then you need to do a condition audit, an asset register. You need to familiarize your team with all the systems and all stakeholders, and then you need to identify critical assets within the facility as well. The fourth point is to talk about the communication strategy. This is internal and external, and it's very important to succeed in this. You need to communicate externally with your client as well with your service providers and suppliers. And internally, you need to talk with different departments from HR, procurement, IT, etc. Now, if you have poor communication, you are going to have complaints from your customer, and this is not good for you. And on the other side, if you actually do a good communication strategy in a structured manner, you are going to give a very good impression for this mobilization and for the image of your company. I normally recommend to have a weekly meeting with the customer in order to keep him informed of all the mobilization activities. This takes us to the fifth point, which is talking about the client requirements for reporting. So what you need to do here is to ensure that you understand the client requirements for the monthly report. You need to submit a yearly plan for the preventive maintenance schedule, and you need to take approval on it, and you need to agree the invoicing procedure that he is comfortable with and is in line with his own process. You need to have a tool in order to ensure that you are following all those activities. And you can use a Gantt chart, which could be within a software like Primavera or any other monitoring tool, or as simple as putting it on an Excel sheet. There is different activities that you need to have, or different headings, as you can see, but we are going to touch on this in the next couple of slides. The next pillar is talking about managing performance. You need to have performance measured clearly. There needs to be a set of KPIs and a set of milestones that need to be agreed within a time frame. If there's an issue with performance, it needs to be highlighted within the weekly meeting, and then all performance issues could be addressed with the client or with the service providers as well. The last element we want to talk about is to develop a risk mitigation plan. We need to develop one to ensure that we mitigate all the risks that could face us, and we need to focus on the potential risks that could destabilize the mobilization process. The following slide is going to talk about a sample of a mobilization plan. We can find this on Primavera, or as simple to develop it on an Excel sheet. The most important thing is to ensure that you have clear tasks and subtasks that are identified with a timeline. So a start timeline, and a finish timeline for each activity. Some activities are going to work in parallel, and some activities need to be finished for the first one to finish, for the second one to continue. For that, you are going to develop a critical path, and that is going to say when you are going to start the project and when you are going to end it. The normal time frame for a mobilization period is normally about 30 days for small to medium projects. Some projects could take up to 3 months or even 6 months for mobilization, and some smaller projects could be done from a day to a 7 days period. We've spoken today about different elements, but to summarize, you need to remember 5 M's. The first M is about manpower. When we talk about manpower, we are going to talk about mobilizing the staff, training the staff, ensuring you have the right caliber for your management team, and that they are ready to be coming on board for the project. The second M is talking about material. When we talk about material, we need to talk about spares, consumables, critical spare part list, how you are going to transport it, where are you going to store it, on site or in your central store. So all those elements are very important to ensure that what you need is there for the project to mobilize on time. The third M is talking about machines. When we are talking about machines, we can look at the cleaning side, and maybe it's a big project. You need a ride-on machine or a walk-behind machine. You can talk about the tools for the technicians, the hand tools, or the bigger equipment that they would need for their services on the hard services side or on the soft services side. Methods is the fourth M. That's very important for you to adopt and to ensure that it is tailored for your project. Obviously, there's standard operating procedure for any company. In facilities management, we have hard services and soft services. Those are in line with international standards. For example, SFG 20 and BICS standard for the soft services. However, you need to tailor some SOPs for site conditions, and that is very important for you to do project to project. The last M is money. Nothing's going to happen without money. But here what we mean is that you need to ensure your cash flow. You need to ensure that you have enough money to pay your suppliers, to pay your team on time. And you need to ensure also that you have agreed with your customer the proper invoicing procedure. From company to company, this may vary, and sometimes your whole payment is stopped because you did not understand how the invoice needs to be done in the special format that the client wants it to be. When you look back in your career, you look and you remember different situations where it was a challenging environment for you to mobilize different projects. However, this case study in particular, which happened in March 2020 during the lockdown, comes on top for me in my career. The client is a large Abu Dhabi-based government entity, has 90 sites that needs to be mobilized in different locations within Abu Dhabi Emirate. The scope of work is hard services, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil works. Obviously, they need a 24/7 call center. The interesting part that they wanted everything to be bilingual with a stress on the Arabic language. So, for example, we are talking about Arabic call center, Arabic CAFM reporting, and Arabic reporting. Also, there is on-call services that needs to be included, as well as water tank cleaning. The contract is a 3-year contract, and it is a comprehensive contract as well. We needed to mobilize about 145 staff during that period, and let me say that this was during the lockdown, the first lockdown in the United Arab Emirates. So the pandemic came with its challenges. If I can summarize, in particular with regards to that project, we had challenges in 5 elements. The first one is the accommodation. The second one is recruitment. The third one is the transportation, the workspace for the back of house, and then the business continuity in general. The next slides, we are going to talk about each element and the action plan that we took in order to mitigate those risks. So the biggest challenge is recruitment. As we said, the country was in lockdown and we had to sort that out. We couldn't rely on overseas recruitment. And what we did with that, we ended up putting flyers out. We used social media to reach out to different technicians that have unfortunately lost their jobs from our competitors, and it was a good opportunity for us to be able to fill those positions ASAP. The third point was medical tests, and those medical tests, again, we had a challenge with it. However, we overcome that by using different medical centers in different Emirates. In particular, we used the Emirates of Ajman to ensure that we could do the tests on time, and then we had to send the people or the staff to the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. The second challenge is about accommodation. We needed more space to meet the requirements of social distancing between the staff. So what we had to take extra rooms to mitigate that risk. The second point was to have isolation rooms, one room per floor, to ensure that any positive cases are isolated in those rooms. The third point, we had to ensure that we are taking thermal checks for our staff when they are going to the projects and when they are coming back. And the last point is to sanitize the accommodation on a weekly basis to ensure that we are meeting the requirements of the government and to ensure the safety of our staff. The third challenge is about transportation. We ensured that we are ready with additional buses to ensure we are mitigating the reduction in capacity for each bus. As you know, at a certain stage, we had to go with 50% capacity less in each bus. The second thing is to sanitize the vehicles and the buses on daily basis to ensure the safety of our staff. The fourth point we want to talk about is workspace. So the challenge was to reduce the headcount in the offices. So obviously we had to reduce the number of people in the office. At a certain stage it was working from home completely. Then we had the 30%, 50%, 70% and 100%. However, as a business we were ready. We were familiar with using MS Teams because we operate in all 7 Emirates of the United Arab Emirates. We are also familiar with utilizing a good CAFM system, ERP system, as well as using agile management through softwares like Trello. The other point that we needed to do is to utilize more space. So what I meant by that, we needed to spread across all our offices. So we utilized our meeting rooms. So if we had 2 people sitting in an office, now one guy is in an office and one guy is in the adjacent meeting room. More than this, we are lucky enough to have 4 offices across the United Arab Emirates. So we spread also our staff within those offices and as well within our 3 warehouses that we have. Obviously, every warehouse has an office, so also we occupied those offices as well. The last point was to people to work from home, and we ensured that a certain percentage of our staff in each department is working from home at every single day so that we mitigate the risk of having all the department have a positive COVID cases. The last point in this case study I would like to talk about is business continuity. So the challenges that we have was obviously when people are working remotely, this gives an IT risk. So what we needed to do is to ensure that we increase the accessibility, but at the same time we increase the security for our systems. The second thing is we had to have specific staff identified for the pandemic readiness. This meant that they had to take some special training in case of emergencies. The third item we need to talk about here is prevention and containment strategy. So we obviously has ramped up our PPE for our staff to ensure their safety, as well as sanitization, as we mentioned, for our offices, our sites, and our buses and accommodation. And the last point is to realign our operational procedure. So basically we had to defer some of the PPMs to a certain period, 3 months down the line, as well as we had to intensify our sanitization for different touch points within our facilities. And here I have to say thank you for our cleaning team, because obviously any touch point like handles or touch buttons in an elevator are very important to be sanitized all the time. This slide displays some pictures. Those pictures reflect various types of trainings that we've done during the pandemic, and especially in mobilizing this project. Obviously, some of the training was virtual at the beginning. Then we had training with social distancing to ensure we reduce the risk and we mitigate all those risks. And we wanted to have the staff engaged at all time to ensure that we can deliver results for our customers. So today we spoke about effective mobilization, the difference between success and failure. There's obviously challenges that you need to concentrate on, and some of them more than others. The first one is recruitment timelines. You need to recruit on time, and that is going to save you time and cost. The second point is to have quality staff. So you need to have a good process, selection process, and to put the right people in the right position. This will save on your reputation, and as they say, well begun is half done. The third point is meeting client expectations. So you need to look into the contract, understand it, as well as to sit with them and understand their needs. This is going to give you project control and trust built between you and the customer. And the last point, delay in mobilization is obviously a big risk, and you need to ensure that you are not delaying the project and you are mobilizing on time. This will give you low escalation and a good start for a good relationship between you and your customer. Thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I'd like also to thank Omaintech for the opportunity for presenting to you. All this information is available on their website, omaintech.org. I'm more than happy to answer your questions now or afterwards through my social LinkedIn profile. Thank you.